What's good, everyone? Welcome to another reading. This one's going to be on what's happening. Like an update on just basically what's happening. Maybe like a kind of a what's next type reading, but I'll probably title this one like what with a question mark. And then, call it like what's happening. Again, that kind of vibe. This is going to be like a general kind of update, what's around the corner type energy. That's probably going to be different for all of you who are watching. I never really say in my readings, take what resonates and leave what doesn't, because I think that's kind of obvious. I would just say for the intro of this reading as well, because this came to my mind recently, just to remind my viewers to always be like selective with what you're inputting, who you're listening to. Like sometimes something doesn't resonate, doesn't necessarily mean it's negative, it just might not be for you. But never be afraid to unsubscribe from a channel if it's not vibrating with you. Pay attention to people's inner demons. Like I just came across a few channels where it's really hard sometimes because someone can sprinkle wisdom, but it's like the underlying intentions of that person who's given the wisdom aren't necessarily good. So use your own discernment, your own intuition to really like pick up on readers. I think this new age we're going into, I feel like people are going to be a lot more selective with what they're listening to. I think we see it very clearly with like news, for example. But I think that's going to be I think that's going to evolve. I'll give you another example of something that I started to do a few years ago. Is when I was listening to music, I would actually listen to interviews of that person and see if I actually vibrated with that person's energy. Because you're listening to someone's music and when you're doing that, you're basically dancing with their energy. So make sure that's a person who you actually vibe with. You might like a song, but the actual vibration of that song might have been written demonically. Might have been written in a super dark, selfish place, and you're bopping onto it like it's a happy song. You could put the same analogy into anything like movies as well. When you're watching movies now, I don't expect people to vet the whole cast list of a movie, but for example, when there's a certain actor or actress, I think everyone's called an actor nowadays, but that you resonate with, like check an actual interview with them where they're not acting and see if you actually vibe with that person. Touching with their lifestyle, type of person are they? These are kind of all things that are kind of helpful when you're kind of so I work with a load of very rich clients, right? And that's given me glory to God, that's given me a lot of experience with being able to evaluate people and understand people. And there's certain tricks that rich people do, right? They understand that no one likes a greedy, selfish bastard, but they actually might be a greedy, selfish bastard, but their mission is to make you think everything but them being a selfish, greedy bastard. So they will do these, I'm sure most people who are listening to this are aware of this, but they will set up these charities and do humanitarian stuff to try and paint this illusion like they actually have a kind heart or care about people, and they actually don't. So I'm sure everyone's aware of that to an extent, right? But here's one of the tips that I came to realize. how to vet kind of someone who's rich or wealthy a bit better is when you see them doing humanitarian stuff, see how much of their personal time they actually invest into that thing. That's how you know if someone's truly got that kind heart or that humanitarian heart, or they actually just give a shit about community or helping others, is what the majority of rich people do. Now, I'm giving you a gem here. Put it into your brain storage system, is that most of the rich people, they'll start up some form of charity or humanitarian project. They'll put their face on it, but they won't put their time into it. That's the key. So when someone actually does care about it, you see them actually putting their time into it as well. That isn't the one little photo shoot they have where they're taking lots of pictures, putting a new well in, or shaking hands with some kid in Africa for a new school. It's not that. It's in their schedule. So they have like a once every 2 month visit to that place to check in, that's not really photographed or anything like that. That's how you know. Now, don't ask me how your average person will ever get into the schedule of this type of person, or understand that type of, get that kind of detail on a person, but that is it. That's what I've come to realize. That's the difference. Some of these people have just become absolute masters with creating the illusion like their humanitarian work is their personality, when actually it's not. When someone's really about it, for one, if you're intuitive, you can just tell. But if you're looking for that kind of logical proof, that's one of the main ones. It's one of the main ones. And you know, another kind of good one, and I might get some rocks thrown at me for this, but pay attention to people's partner, like their relationship, who they choose. So if it's a woman who's a billionaire or multi-millionaire, like what type of man did they choose? Do they care about others, humanitarian work, making the world a better place? Or is everything about that person selfish because it's usually some form of representation of themselves? And if it's a guy and he chooses a wife, you know, who looks at people who don't have money like scumbags, chances are the guy thinks the same. Now there's times where, you know, opposites attract on that, but generally there's a good sign or signal in that. I've come to find anyway. Like I said, I'm not claiming to have all the answers here, but yeah. Anyways, I might have to change the reading because I've just kind of given some game on, I guess, just people. But I don't know, maybe this is kind of a next step for everyone. Maybe everyone, I think everyone can relate to the fact that, you know, what next is we are moving definitely into some form of new age. And in that new age, you know, I know that it's kind of a hot topic where people are talking about it and it's a little bit trending, but it's actually true though. Like, I think, at least I can feel it. There is definitely a new world being birthed. And I think part of that new world is that, like, I think that next generation really aren't gonna tolerate bullshit. they're not going to tolerate. I think there is going to be some form of crumbling of that old money system too. I think that's changing. And if you've seen my video on what did I call it? I made a video on, I think I might have called it The Future. I recommend it if you haven't seen it. I think it's going to have some ugly sides to it, to be honest. I think people get a bit confused sometimes that burn the old and in with the new. And they have some kind of image like everything is going to be a beautiful liberation, almost the new coming of like a hippie age, which actually works out in the end. But I actually feel like it's going to come more with disaster and fear and a literal crumbling. You know, trust me as an architect, when you take down a building, there is debris, there is mess, there is the possibility of danger, people getting killed. There is an understanding of what happens with that rubble. How does that get transported and where does it go? Where does that dirt, unusable debris get dumped? Can you recycle it? Who was in that space before it got crumbled down? Does anyone care about who was in that space before it got crumbled down? And then, you know, with that architect cap on, one has to ask that new thing, that new design that's there, put there, how do we make that better? And one's ego jumps in and goes, here's how you make it better. But again, any fellow architects here know that you can make a decision to make something better with good intentions, only 20 years later to realize the mistakes of that thing, you know? And then we fall straight back into that cycle that we were in before, if we're not careful. Just to close out this introduction, if the microphone picked up on that was a kid on a scooter having the absolute time of his life. So we're going to end that on a positive note. The kid was on the scooter going at full speed, and it was almost to say, you know, just to close out this introduction, that there was danger involved, but let's just enjoy this moment. So, as always, part number 1's, part number 2's, part number 3's. I definitely didn't see that introduction going for that long, but hopefully you got something from it, everyone who's listening. And we'll get stuck into part number 1's. Okay, part 1's. What next? Wrong pen. Although that could be fun. Okay. Well, for one, this character is quirky as. No need to swear, but quirky as. Um, it almost reminds me of. It's like a feminine energy coming through, but it reminds me of almost Vivienne Westwood style. It's funny. Little humble brag. I used to. Maybe I shouldn't say where I used to live, but I used to live like more, let's say more permanently in a certain area in London, and every day I used to walk to work. Luckily, it's in a very good location, and I used to see Vivienne Westwood cycling to work as well, and on occasion I used to get a little nod from her. A while back now, she passed away, which was sad. Didn't know her personally, but she definitely done some epic work, and I feel like I'm telling that story because I feel like this reading has that vibration. If anyone's familiar with the fashion brand Vivienne Westwood, it gives me that vibes. You know, it just really gives me that vibe. And it makes me wonder actually, like, I would love to know in the comments if any of you are literally just fashion designers, because the energy just keeps on coming through. You know, I've noticed that since we really started on this channel. It just makes me wonder sometimes these analogies. I just think I've come to maybe realize that some of you, the analogies that I'm coming up with are just a reflection of your career path. Like, it's basically just what you do. So if you are a fashion designer, I'd love to know in the comments if you are. So yeah, Vivienne Westwood vibes, pile number ones. And you know, like, I can't really speak on the person because, like I said, I didn't know her personally, but she always kind of gave me a pretty nice energy. So like I said, there might be interviews out there and stuff about her which might not speak positively, but my little brief interaction as somewhat of a neighbour to her, or maybe she wasn't a neighbour, maybe she lived 10 hours away and was cycling to work, but I always got the vibe that she was local to the area, you know. Actually, no, she definitely was. I know how she was. So anyways, moving on from that, because this has turned into a reading about Vivienne Westwood and it's about you. This reading is giving me a vibe also of like someone who's like I don't know if, you know, it's probably not a word, but it's like multi-visionary. Because the person, it's almost like they're able to look in 3 directions at once. You could almost say like a little bit like, I was going to say fisheye, but not really. It's almost like able to like focus on 3 things at once, which sounds like a headache. But I guess because this is relating to your what's next, you could link this to something to do with maybe design or fashion. That kind of quirky thread always comes through in these readings as well. I'm a bit quirky myself, so that makes sense that comes through. But yeah, there's something going on here with like maybe what's next for you is, so it could be related to design, something quirky, but then also kind of maybe focusing on 3 things at once, or focusing on one thing but being able to see it from 3 different perspectives. something like that. I'm also getting the image here of like scanning. So those 1, 2, 3, it reminds me of like, like scanning a person. Perspective. I'm also getting the vibe here, just to almost close out the reading. It's like you could be getting hired for your perspective. You might be like finding a new client or something because this perspective is different. Do you understand? It's like everyone else sees something like what's straight ahead of them, and you've got this kind of different perspective where you're able to see three things at once. I think, sometimes I'm doing these readings and it's like the energy's a little bit scattered, but I feel like with that last point there, I feel like that nailed it for someone. So it's like you're coming into something. It doesn't have to be a job. It could well be though, like career based. You're coming into a new position or a new workplace, a new like client relationship, because you're able to see something from a unique perspective. There's something unique that you do where you're able to see things differently to your average person. Pile number one's beautiful reading. Thank you for being here. If you like the video, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. Check out the If You Pause website, ifyoupause.com. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Pile number two's little coffee break. What next? You're not going to believe what that is actually. Pile number two's. You probably think that that's a bag. And if you're adamant that it's a bag, then run with it. Oh my gosh, these are super these are super vogue. Shit, it does look like a damn bag. Maybe it is a damn bag, Valtteri. These are super sassy today. God damn. I had a little collection on my architecture page of different types of people. It's really reminded me of that. There's like something coming back. 99% of people aren't going to know what I'm talking about here, but I have another page focused around architecture, and in the drawings I draw people and they look exactly like this. It's not to say I've never drawn something like this in another reading, but this is, it's quite funny how this is coming through today. It's like flashback. A flashback is the word. Or did they say reminiscing? I think that might be a word too. Beautiful bit of light that just come in to the room and outside. Pile number 2s. So actually, what I was seeing here was actually a bucket, and it was a bucket full of water. So what next says to me, like, obviously it can be a bag for you, but this kind of gives me energy of like whenever I, like, not always, but I think water is definitely symbolic of emotions, one's emotions. And I'm getting the energy here of, because it's in this bucket, it's like controlled emotions. Emotions which are contained. I was also getting the saying of like wearing your heart on your sleeve, but it's not, because that usually means that you're very open. This is almost like someone who's got their shit together, really, actually. It's giving me the vibe of like, I tell you what's giving me the vibe of, you know, like in previous readings as well, and just generally in the spiritual community, we talk about the vessel, our vessel. It's almost like this character has become a master of their vessel, so much so it's like they've got an eye on how much water's in that bucket, because they're carrying it around, literally just walking around steadily. When they want to put some of that sacred liquid into their little plant, they just pour it in, then they fill back up their bucket. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's giving me the energy of it's quite an interesting point, actually. Pile number 2 is, it's like that little inner vessel that we talk about sometimes. You might want to check out my video, Hold Your Energy. Just type that into the YouTube search, Hold Your Energy. But it reminds me of the difficulty that I think all of us have sometimes, is that how do we truly know when our vessel is full and not? If you're an Aries like me, you can be a bit stupid with that sometimes, and it's like exhaustion tells you when you're empty. When you get sick, that has to go all the way. The vessel has to go all the way to like completely dried out for you to actually stop. But then, yeah, just if you're in touch with yourself, if you're tapping in, if you're focusing on the replenishment all the time, it's rare that you actually get to the base of your vessel. And I like this reading a lot, because although there's a vulnerability of having the vessel in your hand, there's at least a security that you know how full your bucket is, how full your vessel is. And I feel like that's what's next for you, pile number 2s, is you've kind of mastered this technique of observing your vessel. That's it. that's what's next for you. If you've come up with this technique where you're able to observe it, it's like the battery on your phone. You've got the percentage on the screen. It's very black and white. You don't have to wait for your phone just to die before you recharge it. You've got some form of calculation. So yeah, pile number 2 is just to end as well. I feel like, as well as that new skill or tool that you've come into with understanding your vessel better, there is a sense here of also stepping into like your power more, a bit more composed. Like I said, really do check out the Hold Your Energy reading because it probably will resonate with you. There's a sense here of like, it reminds me of if this person walked into the room, people would actually turn their heads and look. You know, they've got an energy about them. So I feel like that's something you're coming into, pile number 2s. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the reading. If you did, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next reading, pile 2s. Pile number 3s. Just sitting on the energy. So much vibrations and noise, damn. Don't feel like that was coming through so much. Damn. It was like 2 trucks in a row. I feel like you've got to stay composed. You're coming into like some noise. I'm not going to continue that because I think we kind of caught it. Quite a lot of things going on there. Definitely hermit energy. Almost a bit like a modern hermit. What next for you? So I don't necessarily feel like this is going into a hermit energy, but it's like you're using your hermit skills. It's reminding me a little bit like the analogy that's coming through. It reminds me a little bit of, Karate Kid, and Mr. Miyagi is like telling him to clean the floor or wax on, wax off. I was just thinking about that saying, actually, wax on, wax off. Why would you want to take the wax off? Should actually be more like wax on, wax in, wax on, wax in. Like you want the wax to go into the wood. I guess technically you do kind of take the wax off when you're buffering it in, but like it's almost like waxing in is more important than waxing off. guess if you've put too much wax onto the rag, probably do want to wax off on the second stroke. But yeah, when you actually think about it, it's more like wax on, wax in, 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 wax on, wax in, wax in, wax in. I'm just saying. When you actually think about it, it doesn't sound as good. But I work with wood sometimes, so I just had to think about that. I could be wrong though, like Mr. Miyagi seems to know what he's talking about, so I'll just add my 2 cents, but I'm saying Mr. Miyagi knows best. I humble myself to Mr. Miyagi. He probably knows what he's talking about. Pile number 3's, so the energy, if I didn't make that clear, was you're embracing the hermit energy, but it's more from what you've learned, opposed to what you're going to learn in this phase. This is more of an opportunity to exercise what you've learned. This is the part in Karate Kid where he realizes that those motions were teaching him how to apply it into those karate moves. Quite a cool thing about life is that in many ways God is our Mr. Miyagi, you know? Like, God puts us in certain scenarios where we're waxing on and waxing off. Or if you're Zed, wax on, wax in, wax in, wax in, wax in, wax in. Wax on, wax in, wax in, wax in. And you're thinking, what the hell am I doing? And then in future scenarios, you come to realize, okay, that's why I learned that. And you know, sometimes it's even people who you meet. So it's kind of giving me that energy as well. It's like, you might even realize, Pile 3, is that, you know, someone who you've met is giving you this feeling of, you're going into it and you're thinking, wow, that person prepared me perfectly for this new moment that I'm going into. So I can't really tell you exactly what your role is in your what's next, because I feel like for some of you, you're going to be leading. For some of you, you're going to be teaching. For some of you, you're going to be guiding. You know, for some of you, you're simply going to be shining the light on something, a little bit similar to some of these readings. You know, it's just almost putting the candle to something so you can see it better. You go on and do the work. But I think, you know, it's all of those things that I just said. You know, there's that beauty of, like, even the people that we meet, we've got to put that down to God or the universe, spirit, however you see it. Because kind of, you know, God lines us up to see to meet those people. But yeah, there's definitely that sense there of, you know, like God is our Mr. Miyagi sometimes. I just wanted to end this reading because it was kind of coming through. I could feel it on my spirit. And you might need to hear this, Pile number 3's, because the energy of this reading was very different to the other two. What I've come to realize with the darker moments in life is that, at least for me, this might not resonate with everyone, right? But I've come to realize that the failing in something really does make you like stronger. Just for so many reasons, like the hard fails in life are the things which we have the potential to really learn from. And I know that kind of seems like something that you've heard many, many times before, but like when you grasp it, there is a beauty to it. Like it doesn't matter how hard the fail is sometimes. When God gives you another day to wake up, there's an opportunity to use that to basically win. Really come to realize that. And I've just had so many moments in my life where I personally thought, man, this is it. Like people see everything that I've become now, and they just assume that I just figured everything out, that I was lucky. I like to say that I am lucky because I think that's a damn good vibration to have. But yeah, there's just been times where I've been at such a rock bottom that I just thought, this is a wrap, man. This is it. And in those moments, thinking, shit, this is it. I'm done for here. I felt like I was done for a good little while until I figured it out. And I can look back now that when I ever feel like I'm done for, I can just look back at the times and go, as long as I've got another day to live, there's a way that I can get through this. Because in those times of thinking that it was done for, I kind of figured it out. And part number 3, sometimes the figuring out is actually just waiting something out, which can be impossible sometimes, I know. Like, depending what situation you're in, it feels like waiting something out can make something worse. But what I just mean by that is just surviving it out, like maybe not just waiting it out as in doing nothing about it, but like just taking that one step forward, just laying that one extra brick before collapsing. Yeah, so part 3, I was just opening up to you there. I hope it kind of gave you some strength, even if you didn't need it. Maybe there's a point in your life where you might need that advice. You can maybe come back to this video and remind yourself that as long as you wake up that next day, there's an opportunity to solve that issue. And it's like this story doesn't just end here, because it's not all rainbows and pretty pink sheep. Because when we go through these hard moments, it does harden us. It hardens us. And there's times where I look at myself and go, that poor fucking inner child. Like, shit. Because there was just moments that were just crushing, that crushed it. You know, like people talk about inner child healing and stuff, and I think I've done a lot of mine. But in part of that, I had to accept what actually happened, those circumstances and stuff. And yeah, just part three is remember to always try your damn best to balance it out with some form of self-love. Because whenever those dark moments come, you know, what I don't want to be preaching on these readings is that when you have hard times, don't worry, because you can always make them better. You know, I didn't want to end it that way. I wanted to say that with those hard times, it builds the callus, it hardens us. I think if you're feminine watching this, I'd say be super careful about that. Because I find in most cases that kills your femininity every time. When the trauma is too severe, it kind of brings out the inner masculine warrior, but it kills the pretty innocence. And it's not all sweet for us as men either, because yeah, okay, there's times where we don't really need that feminine innocence. We do to repair ourselves, but it's sometimes the death of that inner child too, right? And that doesn't matter if you're male or female. Like the brutality of a trauma, despite what people want to say, it does have an impact on that inner child, which, you know, it's healthy to always keep part of that spark there. To kill that completely, there's a time to kind of grow up, don't get me wrong, but like to completely cremate that thing, that energy, you gotta be careful with that, because that creates that deadness behind the eyes. You know, when you look at someone's eyes and they're gone, you've got just your inner child, which keeps that alive, I believe. You know, not purely, but, you know, when you look into someone's eyes and they've just got that glint, I think a high like that's a big reflection of inner child energy. I think you would it would be hard to disagree with that as well, wouldn't it? Paraphrase, you know, that was just kind of flowing out of me intuitively, but you know, when you think about it, I think there's got some truth to that. So I'll end you with that note, pile number threes. I feel like out of all the piles, you've definitely gone through a rocky road, and I'll just kind of summarize that for you. That, well, there's all that stuff at the start, which hopefully you took mental note of, but just to kind of summarize, those dark times that come, there's always an opportunity for, as long as we've got another day, to make those better, to learn from them, to almost alchemize it. But then also to not live in la la land of just bad things happen and then we get up. I think almost an ultimate part of self-love is actually acknowledging when, okay, too many blows here. You know, it's almost like the concussion, right? It's okay to get in a few fights. If you've got a crazy bitch like saying, yeah, fight more, fight more, fight more, she might not have any idea that one of those punches to the temple might give you brain damage. If you've got your friends going, yeah, yeah, keep fighting, they've got no idea that, like, that broken nose might fuck your face up for the rest of your life. Or that broken eye socket might fuck up your eyesight for the rest of your life. Do you understand? It's like only you know the pace. And so if there's any like kind of feminines listening to this, it's like just a bit too brutal for them, but hopefully you get what I'm trying to say. I guess like the feminine and the masculines can relate to this too. Like you could even relate this to heartbreak. Like we all know people and situations where, the advice should be have some time to yourself, because one more heartbreak of that person might take them down a dark path. We just talked about the physical impacts of fighting, for example. Just saw the funniest thing. That's for another day. Oh shit, that's gonna make me lose my. So with the feminine energy, which is in all of us, like too many heartbreaks can sometimes send someone down that path of no return, right? It's like no, don't go into that next relationship. Don't get your heart broken again, because you're gonna lose hope in love. There's that limit, isn't there? It's like the same for hard times that hit us. There's a limit. Sometimes it breaks the person, so sometimes the best self-love we can give ourselves, Pal 3, is knowing our own limit there. Took me a while to get that too, but I got there in the end. That's why I'm giving you these beautiful videos. Pal 3s, if you made it to the end of this video, salute to you. Thank you. I hope you got something from it. If you did, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. Keep smiling, keep loving yourself, keep fighting, keep loving, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.